Brendan Marks from The Athletic. Court Vision, a must-read. He also, I've gone through the Duke-Carolina mailbag. Covers not only Duke and Carolina, but he covers the entire sport for The Athletic, and he's awesome at it. Brendan joins us. All right, sir, let's before I get into this particular game, do you have a favorite game of this rivalry that you have been in person for?
Yeah, for a while it was the 2019 ACC tournament semifinal, a.k.a. the only Duke-UNC game that Zion did play in. You had 6 first-rounders on the court. I mean, there's that sequence where, Zion goes up, has a dunk, UNC immediately gobbles the ball up, 2 passes, no dribbles down the court, dunks it on the other end. And, I mean, that was the best one for a while. Obviously, the Final Four has since surpassed that, just in terms of the stakes. That one had it the whole time. It had the ending, But that 2019 one, I think people don't appreciate just how – that was one of the last, great college basketball games that I can remember. Very fortunate to have been there.
Yeah, I have of all the – as I've gotten older and I've kind of gravitated towards hockey, I have been happy to not cover college basketball. But that particular – I had FOMO. I had serious FOMO in April of 2022, or I guess that might have been late March. I don't even know. But I was mad that I was not there. All right, let's dig into this particular game, Brendan. North Carolina coming off a loss where they wilted down the stretch. Duke coming off a win over NC State that they frankly they were not impressive defensively in until late. So if you're North Carolina, what's your formula here? How do you attack Duke? How do you prevent them from getting what they want, where they want it? What is the plan?
Yeah, I think if you're North Carolina, unfortunately, just given the way this team is built, given the way this team has played, given the matchup itself, I don't know that you can win this game with defense. As we have seen from North Carolina this season, in the games against, high-caliber competition at Kansas, Michigan State and Maui, Florida and Charlotte. We've seen in all of those games the way North Carolina has kept it close is with its offense. Right. So I think if North Carolina is winning this game, it's because of what it's able to do offensively, specifically 2 things. Number one, I don't think there is a weakness to this Duke defense. Obviously, it's not perfect, but it's the 3rd best defense in America for a reason. You can get 3-pointers against this Duke defense, as NC State showed in the first half on Monday night. 7 threes in the first half. That was the reason that game was close and competitive, and as soon as the 3 stopped falling, the game completely swung. I do think that if North Carolina can hit some threes, R.J. Davis, to me, has looked a little more comfortable shooting from deep lately. Obviously, we've seen that Ian Jackson can be a microwave guy. Seth Trimble's the one who, for me, since coming back from those few games he missed, his 3-point rate has really, really dropped off. He's a guy who's got to see that a couple go in. So number one, you've got to hit threes. And number 2, you've got to get to the free throw line. Duke, unfortunately, is incredible at defending without fouling, so that one's a little harder. But when you think back to Michigan State, you think back to Kansas, you think back to Florida, North Carolina helped itself in those games by getting points at the line. Obviously, when it's doing that, it's not turning the ball over and it's not having these herky-jerk half-court offenses. So those are the 2 things to me offensively North Carolina has to do to win this game. Can they do them? That's a different question. But that is the formula if North Carolina is going to pull the upset. You mentioned R.J. Davis. He has not had a great season, but it's getting better. So the overall percentage is creeping towards 30%. And when you were at 24% for a long time, for it to creep towards 30%, it seems like he's shooting closer to 40% over the last 5 or 6 games. He probably needs a 6 of 11 type game, but he is more than capable of that. I also think that, this is a game that all of a sudden, hey, look at that, Jalen Withers is back. Or Cade Tyson comes off the bench and hits a couple of shots and just, you get caught up in the energy and the adrenaline of it all. Defensively, and I talked to Tyler Zeller about this yesterday, I asked him who he would put on Cooper Flagg,
He said Seth Trimble. What do you think?
I don't think that's a bad idea. I just think that realistically, Cooper loves to live in the mid-range. And, one thing that's been such a problem for North Carolina all season is it's not just the fact that you have guards out there where you should have, wings and where you should have a little bit more length. It's the fact that the guards you do have are smaller. And Seth, I think, is, obviously the biggest, the strongest, and the most capable defender of the four of them. But at the same time, if you're Cooper Flagg and you've got Seth Trimble on your mid-range, that's automatic for Cooper Flagg every time. He's taking those shots without hesitation. He hasn't been a regular fixture in the rotation. I think that Jalen Withers should get some time on Cooper Flagg. He's long, he's strong, he's athletic. We've seen Dontrez Styles, I think, was a great example of this on Monday night. He was physical with Cooper.
Yeah.
That is a way, again, for as good as he is, Cooper Flagg is still a freshman. He's about 215, 220 pounds. If you have somebody who's got some grown man strength and can elbow him up a little bit, I do think that's one way that you can have some success against him, or that teams have in the past. Again, we're like nitpicking. The guy's still going to have, 28, 7, and 4. But I do think, I could see Seth getting some time. I think Drake Powell's going to get some time. I think that Withers should get some time. Realistically, to me, though, if you're North Carolina, you kind of let Cooper Flagg get his, and you cut off the passing lanes and don't let anybody else, sort of play off him. That's where Duke has been at its most dangerous. And when teams have been able to clog the passing lanes, Wake Forest did a great job of that. That's really where he has struggled. And obviously, when he struggles, Duke's overall offense takes a hit too.
Yeah, and I don't know if you were like me, but I'm watching this Duke State game on Monday night, and it looked to me like they had become just a one-on-one offense. Like it all devolved into dribbling around to get a shot. The ball moved. State moved the ball much better than the Blue Devils, I thought.
Yeah, I think one thing that we've seen from Duke, and it was more paramount in the Wake Forest game, but the NC State game too, those I think have both been below Duke's offensive standards most of the season. It's about those guards, like we talk so much about Cooper Flagg and the defense and the length. Like, Duke still needs Tyrese Proctor and Sion James to be productive for everything to work. They've got to be the connective tissues and the fibers, and often those are the guys who the kickouts wind up at. And I thought Sion, for the first time all game against Wake Forest, maybe didn't look ready for the moment. And Tyrese Proctor, the last 5 games or so, has struggled dramatically. I think that those guys, especially Tyrese Proctor, throughout his career at Duke, when his three-point shot isn't falling, we've kind of seen other aspects of his game regress too. He becomes less of a willing passer. He becomes less aggressive. He doesn't drive to the lane. He doesn't finish inside as well. Like, those two guys have got to be on for me for Duke offensively. Like, we talk so much about Cooper and Con Knipple and the rim protection and the length. Again, those two guards have not been at their best the last couple of games. So, Duke has got to get them back reintegrated, going at the speed that they were, in order for this not to, because I agree with you. I think that NC State, especially in that first half, had much better ball movement. I don't think that's going to be the case for Duke the rest of the season, but it has been the past week or so a little bit of a troubling trend.
Brendan Marks is joining us from The Athletic at this point in the season. And I know this game is different, but it almost seems like the Blue Devils are playing the Blue Devils every game, based on now what their own internal expectations are. And with no disrespect to Wake Forest, I think they're good. I think Pitt's good. State played. I love the way State played. I want State to play like that all the time. But I almost feel like Duke's playing themselves.
Yeah, I do think there's some element here of if you're Duke, or the guys are not thinking of this like consciously, but subconsciously, it's like a little bit more of we're playing not to lose rather than to win. Like, at this point, we've won 14 straight. We haven't lost since Thanksgiving. We have a realistic shot at running the table in the league. Everybody's talking about us as a national title contender, being, number 2 team in the nation. Like, I do think there's some elements of that. Do I think that Duke is realistically, not going to lose another game this season? Probably not. I think human nature is just, you're going to have an off night at some point. I don't think it's a bad thing for Duke to lose a game the rest of the season. I think it's actually probably better that they lose a game and don't have any pressure of, running the table from here on out. But certainly, yeah, I agree with you. And again, in this one, like, who does this game mean more for? For Duke, this is another top 50. Is this game more important than the Wake Forest game in terms of the standings, in terms of going to Clemson next weekend? Like, those games, I would argue, are just as circled on their calendar at this point, strictly from the basketball standpoint. Obviously, there's greater circumstances surrounding this one. But, yeah, I mean, I think at this point there is a little bit of that sense from Duke. You've seen it in the second half, the fact that they've trailed in the second half now in back-to-back games after not having done so for 6 weeks before that, which is crazy to say. But I mean, I don't think they're going to run the table from here on out, but certainly I get a sense of that sentiment, just like you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it, and it's not a conscious thing, but I think Duke will lose a game if they want to. If they don't want to, if they play with the same level of attention to detail, I think they will, until we get either the Illinois game, and they've kind of fallen off of late, or when we get to the NCAA tournament. That, to me, Duke will determine the outcome of every game they play between now and then. Brendan Marks from The Athletic. I appreciate your time, sir. Enjoy. Don't get anywhere near Common Malwash if he's I don't know, had something to eat or something. Stay away from that.
I Towel Mountain forever, but no, I want no part of that. I'm hoping the Crazies are hydrated a little bit better this time too, but it should be a fun game.
Hey, thank you very much, man. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
You got it. Brendan Marks from The Athletic.